The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Ball NBA DFS Today podcast. Today is Sunday, November 10th, and we will be looking at the NBA slate for Monday, November 11th, Veterans Day, a cool 6-game slate. And I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by one of, if not the biggest sharks in the DFS NBA world, Mr. Michael Apotria. How are you tonight, Michael?
I was Jones and licking my chops to do this podcast, Coach. You know why?
Why is that, sir?
It's one gloating reason I've been waiting to get out for
Uh-oh.
a couple of days. Yeah, somebody took a goose egg in that chicken soup challenge, I believe, didn't they?
As in who? Who was the goose egg?
You had Brandon Clark on the night that he had to rest or sit out. And I had Jaren Jackson Jr.
That's true. That is true.
Only one day after my goose egg. So I've been waiting for this little gloating moment, and I believe now it's tied up, so I got out of the way early. And we're going to be figuring out this next one tonight that will give one of us a lead. So looking forward to it.
Well, I definitely created that scenario myself by stating that I would not take a goose egg the entire season. And 24 hours later, I take a sit-out goose egg of rest size. That was very painful. I actually forgot about it. That's how bad of a because we do these shows, obviously, we always let everybody know we do these the night before the game. So that information had come out pretty early the next day, and I knew he was scratched, and I just was over him. I didn't even think about it, and I thought, now that you bring it up, I do. Yeah, it wouldn't be safe.
I won't be here.
It's okay, man. We're tied again. Nobody can pull away here. This is going to be a back and forth battle throughout the year, no doubt about it.
All right. Well, I'm hoping my run starts tonight, but we have 6 games, so we have plenty of players to talk about. We'll probably find somebody in this chicken soup challenge, but I want to hear about these phenomenal sponsors, Coach.
Yes. Well, our presenting sponsor, as you know, is Fantasy Draft. They are the only rake-free fantasy site in the industry. They have some terrific games every day. NBA $25 contest, it's $30,000 pick and roll. And their $5 daily is a $7,500 contest called the Layup. And then, of course, weekly we have our Coaches Challenge, which is only $2. 6-entry max, and you get some fantasy draft swag and a bunch of bragging rights. And I'll tell you what, in that Coach's Challenge, Andrew is just beating the life out of you and I. That's all I know. Yeah. We have got it. We can't beat him.
Yeah, he's been crushing it. And that's why I'm glad he's part of our team. We said it from the start. Follow him on Twitter. Kid's knowledgeable. He knows his stuff, and I'm going to continue, doing my best in these contests. My biggest fault is never knowing whether it's multi or single entry. I generally go in there thinking it's the complete opposite. So I'm going to try to – I'm taking this one down. I want some of that swag, Coach. I'm all about that free swag. I think it's also he's getting the advantage by having Hawaiian Isles Kona coffee now, too. Before that was the secret blend in my cup that kind of just sparks my DFS knowledge bright and early, and now I got it in my enemy's cups, too. So I got to worry about that.
Yeah, he was bragging about it on the show last night, how much he's enjoying his Hawaiian Isles blend. So that is beautiful. But yeah, that we're looking forward to that Coach's Challenge again this week. And again, if you haven't signed up yet, go to fantasydraft.com and sign up with the promo code HoopBall. Get that 7 days free entry up to $1,000 in games, and get in the Coach's Challenge this week. We ran 2 of them last week, and I'll check with Fantasy Draft tomorrow and see if we're going to do that again, or we're just going to run our regular Wednesday contest. But I will find out tomorrow and make sure to post it on Twitter and then mention it on the show tomorrow night when I'm solo. So also our additional sponsors that we love and are responsible for us being able to bring this free content forward is manscaped.com. 20% off when you put the promo code HoopBall and free delivery. Also, for all your betting needs, hopefully the NFL folks cleaned up today, is mybookie.ag, promo code today. Get a 100% match play on your money. And the aforementioned Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, hoop-ball.com's original sponsor, and we love them and we love their coffee. All right, let's dive into this slate and not even mess around tonight. It's a 6-game cool slate, and I'm sort of this first game is bittersweet for me. I've made so much money riding on the big gigantic shoulders of Andre Drummond this season, and Blake Griffin is definitely back tomorrow. And from what I read today, he doesn't not have a stiff minutes restriction. Now they're not going to roll him out there and play him 38 minutes. But they're also not going to roll him out and play him 15. He's gonna get some run, which could be the end of the party for me with Andre Drummond. So let's get your take on this. It's the 7 p.m. Eastern game. It's the first game of the night, and it's the T-Wolves at the Pistons.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely have to take into consideration that Blake Griffin's going to be back. It's going to not only just take up some of the minutes in the front court, but a lot of the usage on the team overall. Drummond his price is kind of being inflicted across the industry, not on all sites, but we could tell that he took a little bit of a bump down due to Blake, being probable for this game. So I still think he's viable in GPPs just for a lot of people jumping off of the ownership. Obviously, a lot of that fantasy goodness we were looking to get is kind of, disappearing. It's still going to be a fantastic. He still has opportunity to get 15 to 20 rebound games. They're just not going to come as often now, probably, with Blake Griffin right next to him. So I still think in GPPs, I'm willing to take a shot on him here and there. I know you're a cash game coach, so right. I'm anticipating, you just not feeling as comfortable as you were in the past. So that's kind of, a good signal where you just want to go elsewhere. And I don't blame you for that. And he'd probably be my only, real option I'm looking at. Kennard has been lighting it up, but he's going to be getting a tough defensive matchup on the other side of the ball. Timberwolves are pretty good at defending wings, and it's no surprise that Rocco, defending the three-point line, he's just one of the league's best. So I'm probably going to just steer clear of the rest of the team, take Andre Drummond and a few GPPs, and, even on the other side of the ball. Teague is looking like he's questionable for this game. He's basically been missing the past few games for an illness. So, he's a guy that when he does come back, he can instantly start seeing some decent minutes. It's not like he's really going to be limited due to a knee injury or anything like that. We should have an idea going in if there is going to be some sort of restriction, but there's not one that I'd really be counting on. So I actually think that we could take a shot on him, and I mentioned it yesterday in one of my articles, that if he played, I'd be looking forward to playing him. This isn't the best matchup I'd want to be targeting him in, but I think that he's going to go low-owned, he's going to get overlooked, and he's pretty good and affordable for what his workload will be once he comes back.
That's a good point. And yes, being a cash game player, and also as I foreshadowed talking about this game, I am going to abandon my main man, Mr. Drummond here, just because of Griffin running alongside him for 25 minutes or whatever Griffin ends up getting. I just think that, that takes that extra edge away that was really scoring the DFS points for Drummond. Also, I think Cat's a little bit of a rough matchup for Drummond. Yes, Drummond can, smash Cat in the paint, but Cat is going to be out there, nailing threes and spreading the floor and drawing Andre out a little bit. So, they may even switch Griffin on him a little bit. I don't know. It's possible, though, especially when Drummond's out of the game. But, I'm looking actually more at Cat in this game. And I haven't been on Cat all year, but I just like the matchup against Detroit. I think that he can get a lot of finesse baskets and hit some threes and, maybe even get Drummond in foul trouble. So my spend-up guy is going to not only not be Drummond, but the guy going against Drummond. So what what a full circle sort of sad game for me to go that route, but it looks like that's what I'm going to do. I did look to Rose is questionable, but it sounds like he might be ready to come back. Did you hear anything else on Derrick Rose?
I haven't heard any or seen anything yet, so I'm kind of just monitoring that same news. And to be honest, it's not something his first game back after missing several, I doubt he'd be getting a huge role of minutes or anything like that anyway. They'll probably ease him back in, and he comes off the bench anyway. So it's not something I'd be generally targeting, especially with his injury history. It's his first game back from an injury. But it might put a hamper in like the Bruce Brown and some of the other wings that we've kind of been seeing some decent value from.
Yeah, and you know what? That's going to be one where we got to watch the news, because for me, if Rose is still out and Frazier's still out, I'm going to play Brown. I like Brown against this matchup. Like you said, Teague's been out like 2-3 games in a row with an illness of some sort. So I can't imagine if he is back tomorrow that he's going to be 100%. So Brown's done a good job. I think. With Minnesota being such a fast-paced team, it's a pace-up game for Detroit. So, I really like Brown in this spot. And, I'm going to read more also the news tomorrow. And you're going to be shocked at this. But if they say that the Griffin could get 25, 30 minutes in that neighborhood, I may could take a real contrarian stab at him just coming back and smashing value. So just something, it's a little bit of an odd take. I don't think he's going to get much ownership, but this game intrigues me. So I'm going Brown, I'm going Cat, and I may mess around a little bit with Griffin if the news looks better. But again, we need to see if Rose is going to return. So I like that game a lot. I know we spent a lot of time on that first game, but I think it's got a lot of intrigue to it. I think Wiggins is also in play, and depending on a couple of other pieces of news on some of these other games, Wiggins may come into play here as well. I think this game could get up and down and put a decent amount of DFS points on the board. So, you may see 3 or 4 players out of my eight-man core built right out of this first game, right out of the chute. So I can take a screenshot and send it to you, Mike, and be in first place for 10 minutes. So,
well, that's always nice when you're seeing yourself up at the top of the standings right away. But it's always like a little sense of fear in your back of your head where you're like, well, this isn't good because that means they got less guys than a lot of other people later. But I do think Cat's in a good spot. The one thing I wanted to bring up also is they're on the second half of a back-to-back tomorrow, and they played in an overtime game where they lost by 2 to a Nikola Jokic buzzer-beating shot.
Yeah.
So this team did play hard. I mean, the minutes were kind of spread across. Nobody really played too much. But it's something worth monitoring. That's kind of why I'm thinking maybe Teague set out the first half just to play the second half of it. To me, that would make a little bit more sense. So I'm really just kind of keeping my eye on, like I said, Teague. Don't mind Towns. There's not a lot of centers we really have to choose from on this slate either. So,
well, it's you're going to think I'm crazy, but it goes to show you. I guess this is a nice thing to say. I am somewhat prepared on some of these games, no doubt about it. But the website that I had given you earlier, it's called statmuse.com. They show the travel stuff, and when people are going East Coast, West Coast, when they're traveling. Well, they played Denver earlier today, and right after the game, they didn't even shower. They grabbed their stuff, got on a plane, flew into Detroit. So they're there. They got a full night's rest tonight, and then they'll play tomorrow. So it's not like one of those get in 1 a.m., your sleep's all screwed up, your shoot-around's all screwed up. So I know, I look for every edge possible, and when I was looking at possibly stacking this game, especially with some Minnesota guys, I did hit the StatMuse website and take a look at that, and they are probably right now, tidy in their beds, maybe watching some late night basketball and getting some rest. So we'll see how it goes, man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a good spot for both guys on paper. It's just at the end of the day, are we going to be able to get up there for those expensive guys like Drummond and Cat? And I think with some of the other options on our slate, we're going to have to really think about it, Coach. I don't think it's just
Yeah.
locking Drummond like you said. That it was so easy to do all season, just to click his name and throw him right in there.
I know I'm going to miss that tremendously. All right, let's move on to game 2. It's a pretty intriguing game. Dallas Mavericks at Boston Celtics. It's a 7:30 Eastern game, and obviously the Celtics are dealing with this horrible news of Hayward breaking his hand, which really sucks. He's such a good guy and playing well. That's really a bummer. But how do you see this game shaping up?
Well, I mean, obviously we have to address the whole Hayward situation and, kind of analyze it and, just decide and figure out who's going to be getting the minutes and who's going to be getting the usage with him off the floor. And the obvious scenario would be, Jaylen Brown kind of shifting over to the 3 and then Marcus Smart playing the 2. And that seems to be, the data backs it up as well. They're the two guys that play the most minutes when Hayward's off the floor.
Right.
And then you see Tatum actually has the biggest usage bump, though. So there's a few guys I think I'm going to be looking at. I think I'm just going to be taking advantage mostly of the Smart and Jaylen Brown thing. Kemba Walker, I think he's always going to be an option just with his upside, but I don't know if this is one that I really want to target him in. I think there's a few other point guards later on in the night that we're going to get to where I think is going to, put most of my ownership into. So for me, just really Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart.
No Luka tomorrow?
Oh, no, I mean on the Celtics side. I'm going to get to the Mavericks side. I try to split it up, Coach. I don't think people just want to hear me go one team to another and just continuously talk and bounce around because then things get a little confusing. So I try to talk one team and bounce it to you, and then I just clean up at the end with whatever most of the times we're on the same page with a lot of these guys. So if after I hear your what you have to say about the Mavericks, if I'm not agreeing on anything, I'll just chime in real fast, and we usually move right on.
Very good. You would think this is our first podcast together. Yeah, I mean, the usage of Hayward, has been super high the last couple of games, especially, and it's continued to dial that way. I have a feeling, though. I mean, everybody's going to be racing to Tatum and Brown. I think it falls back to Kemba. I think Kemba is going to see a lift, and I know the stats it's somewhat of a small sample size, so it's really hard to tell. And I know a little, right now it's showing Tatum getting the biggest jump, but I think it's going to be Kemba. And I just think that it's a home game. The Mavs haven't been starting Brunson. They've been starting Curry. And I just don't think Luka or Curry on Kemba starting out is a good matchup unless Carlisle changes it and puts like a Brunson in or Wright in there or somebody like that to defend him. But I'm not anticipating that off the bat. So I'm targeting Kemba this game. I think that he is the best play. I am not going to pay up for Luka against a Brad Stevens defensive scheme. I mean, he's probably second to me to Spoelstra and maybe third to Pop, I guess, in defensive schemes to stop good players. So I'm not going to go Luka. And, I think KP's getting stoked up this week for the game at New York. And I don't know if he's going to be as focused in on this game. And Boston defends the 4 actually pretty well. So I'm going to pass on the Mavericks. And I am going to focus on spending up for Kemba as my only Celtic.
I'm not going to knock you on the Kemba thing. Obviously, he's a guy that has tremendous upside, and we've seen him do it plenty of times in the past. I speak about industry pricing a lot. On DraftKings specifically, I think he's underpriced at $8,900. Just based on the other options on the slate and where he's priced at. And I do think it's a fantastic, matchup. I don't know if I'm going to go there. I think a lot of the ownership is going to go there. I also think a lot of it's going to go to Brown and Smart. I think between those 3 guys, we're going to see a majority of it go. I'm only looking to play one of those guys. I'm not going to try to get over-embellished about this Hayward news and stack up and try to take advantage in 2 or 3 spots in the same lineup. I'm going to pretty much be looking to get one of those guys. And then when I look at, like I said, I mentioned, DraftKings, where you're forced to play a small forward, that's kind of where I look at Brown. I think he makes a
Yeah.
little bit more sense when you need to, look for a guy that's a mediocre price who still has some pretty good upside based on the situation, that you could slot right in there at small forward. I think that's a good thing to do. So it's really going to come down to construction for me. I do like Luka though, so I mean I'm not gonna. It's hard for me to fade this kid any night at this point, Coach. I don't
He's
know what
been
else
out of
to
his
do.
mind, man.
He's playing like a 6-year veteran.
Yeah.
He's in the conversation for MVP. He's looking like he's every night he has the opportunity for mid 50s to 60. It almost seems like the floor. There's been one game in the past 5 where he's had less than 45, and then
Yeah.
everything else over 50 or almost 60. So three 70-point games in the past 5. He's definitely gonna have my interest. Yes, it's a tough matchup. I generally try to avoid the wing type players against Boston, but it's Luka at this point, and I think we have to consider him. So he's definitely going to be in a couple of my lineups. I don't think I'm going to fade him all year. I don't care about the matchup at this point. I just know what he can do.
I don't blame you. I mean, if he could go into the Garden against that team with a good defensive scheme that they have and drop 60 plus fantasy points, then I would be surprised. I just think his ceiling is a little tenuous in this game. But like I said, I've watched Luka play every game this year too, and it's like nothing would surprise me at this point. The dude is playing out of his mind. So it should be interesting. And both teams. One thing to note here too is we look at both of these teams and think good defensive coaches, good defensive minds, but they're really actually a little bit below average in the 18 and 19 hole on defensive efficiency. So both of these teams can score, and they're definitely you don't have to fade this game by any stretch, and you may want to look at a little correlation, maybe play somebody from both sides, but I think Jaylen Brown's going to get way too much ownership. That's just my gut feeling. I think that's where all the Hayward stuff's going to go initially, and I want to fade that if possible. But we'll see. Let's move on to the 7:30 Eastern game, third game of the 6. It is Memphis Grizzlies at the San Antonio Spurs. Grizzlies re-suit up Ja Morant and Brandon Clark after both taking a rest game, and they're playing at San Antonio against the defensive-minded, scrappy Spurs. And so this game is intriguing, I think, in the fact that I think it'll be a decent game with Memphis being back at full strength. But going into San Antonio with a very young team is always an arduous task. So what's your take here? On Memphis, I'll ask you.
I could probably cover a whole clean sweep on this whole game in once, Coach. I'm not really interested
Are
in
you
Memphis.
trying to confuse me?
I think I am. I'm trying to throw you off again. No, I'm not. I'm not interested in anything really on Memphis. I don't. Good thing that the rest happened and everything. That does bode well for those two players. Just not a spot I want to target. And I don't think we need to. I think we have a lot of other good games where we can get a majority of our players from. If you wanted to take a one-off on any of these guys, I'd probably look to do it on the Spurs side rather than the Grizzlies. They're going to be the ones that are kind of playing at an up-tempo pace. That's just kind of my whole take. But then again, you're looking at the Spurs side. I'm not really interested in playing DeMar, and I haven't been interested in playing Aldridge. We haven't been really seeing these ceiling games from either player.
No.
And a lot of it has to do with DeJounte Murray now being in this offense for a decent role. He's not still playing boatload of minutes. We'd like to see a little bit more before we really want to start investing him in. But he does have a little upside. Not for me though. Not doing it on this slate. I don't think we need to target it. I like to target him in those matchups against the Hawks, the ones where that he's going to be up in the point guard, getting a lot of turnovers, causing some panic on the defensive end. And I don't think it's going to be necessary in this one.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm sort of torn in this game just for the fact that, people are going to see Memphis at the Spurs and their immediate reaction is pass just because of, it's at San Antonio. I still think people associate Memphis at times with being slower than they really are. But even the Spurs are playing faster this year. Memphis has been in the top 5. They've slipped to 6 right now. And San Antonio's in pace. They are up to, where are they? 18, which isn't bad, almost the middle of the pack. So I don't think this is just a flat out fade game. But I'm with you, man. It's like, how the hell do you count on anybody from San Antonio? I mean, anybody. They have a massive guard rotation of about 5 guys. You just don't know who's going to step up that night. Ever since the final straw for me was the night Patty Mills dropped 28. And I was like, all right, we went from Murray to White to Forbes. Now Mills is dropping 20. I mean, come on. How are you supposed to figure that out? So I don't want any part of that. And like you said, there's just been a very, very low ceiling for DeRozan and Aldridge this year. I mean, the Spurs have managed to be 5-4. They seem like just a very average, mundane team that nobody really steps it up, and they rotate a lot of guys. I don't know. I bet you there's only been a few times I've rostered a Spur all year. It's crazy. And even in this pace-up game against Memphis, I don't feel comfortable with it. On the Memphis side, I think DeJounte Murray is a tremendous defender. I think he's got the potential to be an all-defensive NBA type of defender, and that alone scares me with against Ja, even if it's for 25, 28 minutes. That means he's going to really have to work for everything that he gets. I'm getting closer and closer to biting on the Joe Val situation. I know we talk about it every night, and he keeps eking a couple of minutes here and there, and he's so damn good. The Spurs haven't exactly been stellar against centers, and I just wish his price was about $500 less. If it was, I'd be on Joe Val and feel comfortable with it. But we may still be 2-3 games away from me making that decision. And after that, I'm with you. I mean, I hate to fade this game because I think it's what the industry's going to do, but I don't think it's just an automatic fade game like everybody's going to play it. But then I say that and I'm fading it. So I guess it is what it is, man.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you don't need to force it. Sometimes you want to take advantage of the lower ownership, but if it doesn't make sense and you can't really justify it, it's not worth it. At the end of the day, you can differentiate yourself in a different way. There's plenty of ways on this slate. There's going to be a lot of chalky spots that you can hop off of. I just think that, even looking, like you said, at the Memphis side, the two best players that we want to talk about are Morant and Joe Val, and both those guys are on minutes limits. So it's really about picking the spots when you're talking about playing a guy on a minutes limit. You're really looking for the upside and everything else kind of being baked into the matchup. And against the Spurs, it's not one I want to go to.
Absolutely. Let's dive into this fourth game because it's the elephant in the room. It's the 8 o'clock Eastern game. Rockets, Pelicans, two of the top 3 teams in pace, two of the worst defensive teams. Every DFS person is going to drop their pants and run around the block here for this game. I mean, you're going to see 5- and 6-man stacks in this game. Everybody's going to this game, and rightfully so. I mean, you've got just two offensive-minded teams. They're both scoring about 110 a game and just filling it up. So, it's crazy. I know we've got Lonzo missed the last game. What is his status for this game? Have you seen any updates?
As far as I know, he's not playing. So I'm going forward with the same notion that he isn't playing. So. That's going to bode well for whoever he would be guarding, which I would assume would be Russell Westbrook. But a lot. I was going to get to you first on that situation. Do you trust Westbrook? I mean, a couple bad games in a row. I don't want to just jump to conclusions on anything. I think it could be something to note, worth taking advantage of the price tag as it dives down. But earlier in this game in the season, these two matched off. Westbrook had the better game than Harden. I want to know where you stood first, though, Coach. I want to hear what you have to say about these two players tonight.
I have played Harden more than Westbrook, but the price has gotten prohibitive now because they were only separated by $300, $400, $500. Now you're getting into some big number difference here. But there's certainly a lot more risk with Westbrook laying a couple of eggs. I don't take a lot of heed into that because he's such a DFS points monster. And in an up-pace game that's open floor like this, I mean, he could just crush. And I've defended New Orleans backcourt all season. Like they're going to be so good defensively. Hart's a stopper. Frank Jackson can come off the bench and defend. Lonzo Ball's a hell of a defender. Drew Holiday's an all defensive defender, and their backcourt's been getting smoked every game. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Why aren't they defending? Is it Gentry's pace? He has a tendency to do this his whole career. That's why I've always said I don't care for Gentry as a coach, because his offensive scheme and pressing the accelerator, to get shots up 8 seconds into a shot clock. What it does is it turns around and bites the defense in the ass the other direction. And I think it's really messed with the guards defensively. Their rotation has been awful. And so, all that being said, do I trust Westbrook in this game? Yeah, I do. I don't think you could go wrong with Harden or Westbrook. I don't think you can afford to play both realistically. I don't. Because there's so much of a spread, and because I think Harden's going to dominate the ownership, I actually favor Westbrook a little bit in this game.
Yeah, Coach, we're going to agree on something. I like it.
Yeah, and I think that it's just a good, smart play. And, maybe he ends up with 55, 58, 60 fantasy points, Westbrook. I think he very easily could. Does that mean Harden's not going to have, 58, 60, 63? Very possibly, but there's a big salary difference there. I mean, it makes the difference of being able to play a guy in another position at a mid price as opposed to a dumpster dive value guy. So, I like Westbrook on that side of the ball. I'll tell you the one giant fade I'm going to have here. It's a PJ Tucker punch in the face, I think, for Ingram. I think Ingram is going to get the wrath of PJ Tucker, and he's going to slow him down. And that's saying a lot, because I love Ingram. I mean, I've got him on all 5 of my year-long leagues. I've rostered him a bunch this year. I've been in his corner since he was drafted out of Duke. I think he's all-star potential player, and he's starting to show that. But I sense that Tucker steps up and smacks him in the mouth in this game, and it's a little bit of a reality check. But as far as the other Pelicans, Drew Holiday is always a great option. He had a great game the last go-around, and he's the beneficiary of Lonzo being out. That usage bump goes to him. So I would love to be able to play Drew and Westbrook in this game and sit back and watch it.
All right. Well, I'm definitely with you, like I said, on the Westbrook bandwagon over there. Yeah, you hit a nail on the head. Harden could easily have a good game as well. For me, it's the salary. It's the previous matchup gives me a little slight boost of confidence. I don't take that into account too much, but the salary and just knowing what his upside is capable of, and I think a lot of people when they run through the box score, they're going to see the past few games and be scared off. Looking at any other options on there, like you said, Harden, yes, I'm with you. I think PJ Tucker could give Brandon Ingram a little bit of a problem. He's a bigger body. He had one of his, Ingram's had good games almost every single game this season.
Yeah.
One of his down games, which, by any other standards is still a pretty good game, was against in this matchup. The one thing that I am taking note of, though, is that last game the Pelicans did roll out Kenrich Williams, and he played the 4. So if they do that again, does PJ Tucker move over on the defensive end? Does he still guard Ingram, or does he stay at the 4 and take on Kenrich? That's something I'm going to have to take into account. I don't know.
He's going to guard Ingram.
Yeah,
no doubt in my mind.
And
they'll slide House over to Kenrich.
But House is also questionable coming into the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's so there's a few things that I kind of want to see and monitor the news-wise.
So Eric Gordon might slide back in then?
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how they're going to do that. They don't really have the body that they'd like to have, which would be Gerald Green at this point. That's the body that they want, the nice 6'6", 6'7" defender that they can kind of, roll out there. So they could be in problems if House doesn't play, and one of those two guys, and I'd look at Kenrich Williams' price, and it's still, very, very, appetizing if you want to
He
try to
had a
get some value.
terrific game the last game too.
And he is good. He's a good point spreader
He
producer.
is. He's a good defender too.
He falls into a lot of rebounds, which is something I
Mm-hmm.
like about him. He's not going to go out there and drop 26 or 30 points, but before you know it, he's close to a double-double, or he's got 17 points and 8 rebounds with a couple assists and steals chipped in. So I think he's going to be one of my main options. If we
Yeah.
hear the starting lineup and once we know it, and if I see that Ingram just has an absolutely outrageous matchup where I think he could take advantage of it, like if he is being matched up against Eric Gordon, that's something I definitely will look at. But otherwise, the only other thing we can monitor is Josh Hart. I think between Josh Hart and Kenrich is where I'm going to get most of my shares on this side of the ball, and it's going to be whatever one's in the starting lineup.
That's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up, with House and then also with Kenrich because, I want to see what that lineup's going to be. I just can't imagine that Tucker isn't going to guard Ingram and they're going to figure out how that's going to happen because, that was so effective for them in the last game and it makes sense. But if for some reason, they start Gordon and they're going to switch around and Tucker's going to guard Kenrich, then I scratch Kenrich off my list. If not, then Kenrich is certainly a great value play. I mean, he played a great game. Gentry's just loving him right now because he's such a good two-way player and he hustles. And they seem to the plus minus when he's on the floor is a lot better than when he's off, and he's a difference maker that way. So we got to follow the news on this one, guys. And that brings me to the point of. You got to follow this. This is a two-step process. We do this this podcast the night before for the next day's slate, so that tomorrow on your way to work, at lunch, on a break, you're listening to the show. Start building your lineup, and then tomorrow you got to listen to the news. You got to watch the feeds. You got to follow us on Twitter and see that player news because that is as just as important as this listening to the show and building that base lineup is, you've got to see where those dominoes fall because that makes a tremendous difference. And this game is a perfect example of that. But on Twitter, you can follow me at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He is at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. Our man Andrew is at Language Olympic. And follow us also on Twitter at Hoopball Fantasy, all one word, Hoopball Fantasy. And that is where all our blurbs and all our info for Miles and Andy at hoop-ball.com is constantly being updated. Also, you can go directly to hoop-ball.com, click on forums, click on the DFS thread. I'm posting player news in there all day. Miles and Andy are all over it. They do a fantastic job. And, also when you're on hoop-ball.com, sign up for our premium package there. We have the best podcast team on the radio when it comes to, or podcasts or anywhere you listen to NBA information that's out there. So definitely dial that up. Also, mention of our sponsors here real quickly, fantasydraft.com. Sign up with the Hoopball promo code and get that free week of DFS play. They are our presenting sponsor. They, along with manscaped.com, mybookie.ag, and Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company, all team up to help us bring this show to you on a daily basis, which is in front of the paywall, not behind it, and you get state-of-the-art, up-to-date, best in industry DFS NBA fantasy news 7 days a week for free. And so without those sponsors, we could not get it done. Listen to us every day. NBA Today Podcast or DFS Today Podcast, or search with both NBA DFS Today Podcast. We're going to come up. Click on us. We are on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere podcasts are found. Take 15, 20 seconds, please. Rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars, likes, thumbs up. Those things make a monster difference to us and to our sponsors. So we really, really appreciate that. And we are growing day over day, show over show, and we thank you and appreciate your input. We're getting tons more reviews, lots more retweets on Twitter, and all kinds of things flowing in. Let's keep it going, man. Let's keep it going. So that is it, my man. We've got 2 games left on this really cool 6-game Monday slate. We have 2 late night hammer games that both start super late, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And the first one is the Utah Jazz at the Golden State Warriors.
Yep, and I think it's time to hop off the Warriors bandwagon over here with all the value that we've been playing, Coach. I mean,
Yeah.
D'Angelo Russell being back kind of put a kibosh on Kai Bowman, and now Draymond Green is being listed as probable. So we have to kind of wait and see what kind of happens with that whole Eric Pascal situation. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. This isn't a great matchup where we're going to be generally looking to target them anyway, going against the Jazz, who, for the past several years have been known for their elite defense, having the 2-time reigning Defensive Player of the Year on their team. Anchoring it down doesn't, help targeting them. So I'm just going to kind of let it be. I mean, if you wanted to take a shot on anyone, I guess it could be Russell, but I think we have other options that I'd rather go to.
It's funny you mentioned that about the party's over, because it's been a blast this last 5 slates, because you could plug in a combination of Pascal and Bowman, or Poole and Robinson, or some mix of 2 of those 4, and you had your value, and you could just immediately buy up to some more studs. But that is really gone. I mean, with Draymond and D'Angelo out there, just as you stated, who picks up the pieces after that? Whose value is going to maintain and see through that? I mean, it is a tough call, and I don't know if anybody has that answer. And I think that most of the industry is going to do what you and I are doing, and we're just going to fade that and see where the dust settles now that the 2 good players are back in full force, playing strong minutes for Golden State. So, that in combination with going against the Jazz. I mean, the Jazz, always fantastic defensively. They're 27th in pace in the league. They are 2nd in the league in defensive efficiency. I mean, playing guys against the Jazz is somewhat suicidal, if you will. So I'm not going to do it, especially with the news of Draymond back and D'Angelo lacing them up full tilt. So that's a pass. Now, I do like some Utah guys here. I'm going to try to fill my team out, because I'll just tell you right now, I'm passing that last game, Raptors-Clippers. I'll let you get to that one. But it allows me to have a couple of guys from Utah. If you've followed quietly, Bogdanovich has been kicking ass and taking names. I love him in this matchup. He's a tremendous shooter. He's a 50, 40, 90 candidate that people never talk about. I like him in this matchup. I also think Donovan Mitchell, although his price is a little higher than I'd like, and I got to see how my salary's going to fit. But Golden State's defensively, yes, they'll take a big jump up with Draymond back, no doubt about it. But they're still 30th. They're still dead last in defensive efficiency in this league. So, that is definitely something to be concerned about. They're in the mid-teens in pace. So, Utah's going to get decent amount of possessions. They're always going to slow it down. But I want to roster Bogdanovich for sure. I really like this matchup for him. And if I can fit Mitchell in or pivot from somebody close to his price, I'd love to have 2 Jazz in this game, because, I'm not anticipating with Draymond and D'Angelo back in there and the game being at Golden State that it's going to blow out. So being the fact that Golden State's been just such a, terrible defensive unit. They were terrible even before Draymond went out, to be honest with you. But, I think you got to try to dial up 2 Jazz guys and then roll with it from there. And I'm going to transition right into this last game so that you can roll with it. the Raptors are playing the Lakers right now. I have no idea what's going on in that game, but I know the Raptors went into that game, even though they're 6-2, with just the devastating news of losing Lowry to a broken thumb and Ibaka to a pretty serious leg injury, and being super shorthanded and being on a road trip, playing back-to-back, being shorthanded, and then the Clippers, fresh, great defensive continuity, beating people up. This game just scares me from a DFS standpoint. I'm going to pass. So if you have any final comments on Utah Golden State, if not, just go ahead and take the Toronto Clippers.
I'll just start with the Clippers because, I think you pretty much covered everything over on Utah, and I pretty much agree with the same things as you. But I do not agree with you as far as this game because I do think that we're going to have to take advantage of some of this Toronto value.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily going to be jumping on board of Van Vliet in this matchup. I was all over him tonight. I haven't checked the scores. I don't really know how he's doing. But the two other players that I were all over, I'm going to be on instead, and that was Norman Powell, who started tonight and is going to probably continue starting. He was actually lobbying to be the starting shooting guard at the beginning of the season before they named it to Van Vliet. So I fully anticipate him to be still pretty, he'll probably be pretty high owned just due to the opportunity that he's going to have, but I think he's low enough salary where we could take a good look at him. And then there's Chris Boucher. So he's a guy that, I'm expecting to see some
Bobby
fair
Boucher?
Yeah. Mama. This guy's a phenomenal points per minute guy. He's kind of like another one of those Christian Wood guys who just goes down into the G League and absolutely smashes things up until all of a sudden, all right, we're going to have to call him up because he's playing so well, but they realistically never really play him. But the Ibaka injury creeps open a little door for him to sneak in there and get 18 to 20 minutes a night. And even more potentially if we're looking at, the back-to-back, Gasol being a veteran, maybe he plays a lot tonight. They want to rest him a little bit. Maybe the game gets out of hand. There's a lot of avenues for him to see an extra run. And if you give this guy just 18 to 20 minutes, he can easily, produce the value that you're going to want in return.
That's a great call. Tonight he's got 12 minutes at halftime, so he's played half the game. So he's on pace for 24 minutes. And old Bobby Boucher, actually it's Chris Boucher, but he's, a great value play. He's going to fill the role basically of exactly what Gasol was doing, I think. Not at the same level, but, he's going to get that 25 to 28 minutes possibly. A lot of, activity at the 4-5 with Gasol and Siakam in that rotation. So I think that's a great call, man. You bring up a good point, and he's a good value guy if you have to dig in and grab it. Now, Van Vliet is a stud. You're right. Van Vliet is – he proved that in the finals. The dude, to me, was definitely finished second to Kawhi in MVP. He was awesome. And since then, it's just no looking back. And, I guess Van Vliet in the real scheme of things should almost be a plug and play at this point. And I'll tell you why. Because Lowry's usage, they were number 1 and number 2 in the league in minutes. I threw that quiz at you like 2-3 days ago. And now that Lowry's out, man, I can't imagine Van Vliet even more is going to fall on his shoulders. And he played 20 minutes in the first half tonight. It's in the Lakers game, and it has 13 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals already. So I don't blame anybody for just mashing the Van Vliet automatic button. But here's my concern tomorrow. It's against the stinking Clippers, and he's probably going to grab Pat Beverly defense. Beverly's going to be all up in his grill and jersey and everything else, bugging him and pushing on him. He's playing a back-to-back, and it's just like, can they even stick with the Clippers? I don't know. But I get what you're saying. I'm so glad you brought that up, though, because, you got to really look at both of those guys and consider them. And cost-wise, we're going to see Van Vliet just start skyrocketing in cost too,
Yeah, absolutely. And, another thing I'm pretty pumped up to see is this is going to be a matchup between 2 undrafted point guards. So it'd be cool to see like a little jersey swap at the end of the game where they kind of take a photo with each other and, This is two guys that neither one of them were expected or thought of to make it in the NBA, and now look, they're both leading their respective teams. One to a championship last year. The Clippers look like they're one of the favorites this year, and it's pretty cool. So
It
I'm
is
definitely
cool.
looking forward to that little matchup between those two.
Do you remember when Van Vliet was at Wichita State on that awesome Wichita State team that went to the Final Four?
Was that the one with the crazy bench mob?
They
Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe Wichita State had like one of the. I would turn on ESPN in the morning, and it was almost a headline every time they had a game, and it wasn't even about their basketball program. It was about what their bench was doing to celebrate and stuff like that.
they did the cross legs. They all went one way, they all went the other. They did all. Yes, that was part of that team. You know who else was on that team? The guy, the kid that played for the Knicks, lefty white kid. He ended up he played quite a bit, but he's out of the league this year. What is his name? That is going to drive me nuts. I bet you our listeners are yelling it at their phones and laptops right now. What is that kid's name? Lefty.
Old age, coach. Old age. It gets you sometimes.
White kid played for the Knicks. Okay, it'll come to me eventually. But yes, so anyway, on that, Boucher's got to be an option at the cheap price. And Van Fleet, you always have to consider with Lowry out now for quite some time. But what about on the Clippers side? Who did you say there?
Oh, so the Clippers, you cut me off. You rude. No, I'm just joking.
What else?
I'm mostly just looking at Kawhi. I mean, yeah, everyone's gonna gravitate towards the narrative and playing his former team against the Raptors, all this, but they left on good terms. This game's gonna be played in LA, so a lot of the narrative juice is kind of taken out of it for me. So I'm not gonna go overboard. On Kawhi, I think maybe a share here and there wouldn't be a bad thing. He is the third highest priced player on Fantasy Draft, so that's kind of my approach, is just kind of taking the pivot off of him and going down or up to a different spot. And I'm not really interested in, very much more against your Patrick Beverleys or, some of these other wing guys that we see, the backup unit between Harrell and Lou Williams. I think, I could see that stack. If you wanted to stack, the starters and the Raptors and the bench units from the Clippers, go for it. That's one thing I can agree with, but I'm not just going to be playing those guys as one-offs.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And, it's funny, anybody else in the league is like got emotions and feelings, but I don't think if Kawhi was playing against his mother and his aunt and his cousins, he would show any emotion. I mean, I don't even think it's going to faze him playing against Toronto, to be honest with you. I mean, he's just such it's
a robot.
Blasé to life in general that nothing seems to bother him. So, God only knows, man. I'm looking this up right now as we speak. It was 2012, is that right? Where they were in the Final Four, Wichita State. Let's look this up and see. I am bound and determined to find out this information.
Coach, we might be able to tell you guys next show. I don't. The coach in his old age, sometimes he goes on these little, journeys where he needs to find out the information. Otherwise, he can't continue with his night. It's like that itchy ass to scratch
so
kind of thing.
It's important to me, man. I mean, this is like, and it's I'm down one of those rabbit holes. I actually accidentally clicked on like Wikipedia Wichita State, and I clicked on something else. And now I'm getting like their uniform design. I'm totally off the rails here. I don't know what I'm doing, but what year would it have been? Not 2012.
2012 seems way too old. Yeah, that's 7 years ago at this point. So I would probably guess like 15.
Let's see here.
That would be my guess, somewhere around there. But who knows? My math could be off a little bit. It probably is at this point. But we still also have to figure out our chicken soup bet, Coach. So I wouldn't be spending too much time over there. We're running out of time. We went through all these games. We didn't come up with a challenge yet. So I think we need to nail one. And
I found him. Ron Baker.
Oh, Baker. Okay.
Ron Baker was on that team. And Cleanthony Early was the other guy I was trying to think of. He had a cup of coffee in the NBA. And Fred Van Vliet. They were all on that squad together. They made it to the Final Four. See, you never say die, man. It's just a matter of digging.
What year was that?
2016 draft. So it was that.
15?
It was right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was, yeah. And it says here that he entered the draft in 2016. But are you saying he was not drafted?
I believe he was undrafted. Yeah, Fred VanVleet was undrafted.
In professional bat, yeah, it does not look like he's only 6 foot. But that was a good team he was on, man. That team made a great deep run into the playoffs. Old Ron Baker, he's not a bad ball player either. I bet you he's playing over in Europe. We'll have to dig on that. And that's another quiz question. Somebody tweet me that, would you? Out there, let me know where Ron Baker is. I know there's somebody out there that's
some big Ron Baker, yeah.
No doubt. All right, excellent. So Clippers, for me, I don't want to spend up on Kawhi. Again, I've got that fear of possible blowout in this game, and I know you're not supposed to predict blowouts. Somebody was jumping my bones on Twitter tonight saying, "Coach, why did you predict a blowout?" Well, you know what? He did that at halftime, and it was a 5-point game, and then they ended up getting blown out. So I didn't see a follow-up tweet from that tweet, by the way. So that was an earlier game tonight. But anyway, so that's it. Anything else on that final game that you have?
No, that's it. I think that's most of my love's going to be coming from the Raptors side of the ball, and that's going to be in form of value. Definitely going to be all over Boucher again. So, is it Boucher?
Boucher. It is Boucher, just like.
It's really Boucher. I didn't know if you were just messing with me. Yeah, so
no, it really is. That's why they call him Bobby.
I'm gonna be all over Mr. Boucher then.
Yeah, I don't want you texting me going, but.
I won't, as long as you got him in a couple of your lineups.
Well, you know what? I'll give you Bobby Boucher. Give me somebody else to go against him for chicken soup. Right. I have no problem. The Clippers will shut him down like a bad habit.
Well, I don't want to keep every listener on the hook, waiting after we just had to spend, we spent a couple minutes doing a little research and a little fun game. So why don't you?
They love it, man.
I was going to give you a night to think about it. I'll take him still.
I don't need any night. I'm coming off a 0, for God's sakes. I can't do worse than a 0. How about off the bench, big man Brandon Clark?
That's fair. I'll do that.
I mean, they're both similar minutes, probably.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll do that. I'll take that.
And I just took a damn goose for Clark. He owes me. So
I hope it's like I don't ever like to hope for an injury, but I hope for the chicken soup challenge bet that there's some undisclosed injury and he gets another goose egg for you. But
if he takes another goose, I'm catching the next plane to Memphis. I'm gonna go slap him in the face.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see where that
Actually, they're in San Antonio. I can just jump on the interstate here and be down there in 4 hours.
There you go.
And do it in person.
yeah. Tweet out. Give them a heads up that you're coming.
Yeah, I'll have to jump up to reach that high to slap him, but I can. I may be able to strap my knee up and jump high enough to get him.
Yeah, with old age, the knees, the back, the memory.
Happens,
you'd forget what you were driving halfway on the car ride over.
Our poor listeners. This is probably the worst I've gotten off the rails on the show in a while.
Let's end this, Coach.
Ron Baker slapping guys in the face. I don't know where I'm going, dude. I'm
reeling. It's a mess.
I'm reeling. It's the chicken soup challenge shutout. It's got me in a quandary because I forgot about it, which made it worse. Because then you punched me right in the nose live on the show. And I had to suck up a 0 there. So,
absolutely.
It's your fault, man. Thanks a lot, Mike.
I didn't say a thing about it. I didn't text Coach. I didn't mention it. And we're
probably about and punch me right in the
Absolutely. That's the best way to do it. I wanted you to just forget about it for a minute. But now you got to go to bed. You get to think about it. You dream about it a little bit. Stew on it during the day tomorrow, and just kind of wait. Get all excited for this next night of cards where you can hope that Brandon Clark wins you a chicken soup. But at the end of the day, when you lose another one on the road, they're going to start to pile up and sting, Coach. So after a few of these, you're going to need a break, I have a feeling.
I'll be back in the lead. Mr. Clark will step in and take care of business. especially since he owes me one. So my quick wrap up for tomorrow is fade Drummond for the first time this year, which is so painful for me to say. Dial up Kemba. I love him tomorrow. Favor Westy over Harden just because of the price difference there and the upside ceiling for Westbrook. Mike and I both agree on that one. I like a couple of Jazz against a depleted Warriors defensive unit. And that's really my summation of the card. And, just a lot of Wichita State pride on this show tonight. That's all.
Yeah, that's going to be your new thing, Coach. So it's the running tail. Somebody, if you have any like Wichita State gear, maybe with the school there, somebody that send it to Coach. If anybody has like a shirt that that we could send Coach for Wichita State, we'll give you guys like a hoop ball or a fantasy draft one back in return. We'll do a nice little even swap.
I will post if you send me something Wichita State. I will make it my symbol on my DFS games with me wearing that shirt or hat or whatever Wichita State year it is. I'll post it up there for a week instead of my poor old Roto Raider one, which is hot though. I had a big night last night. With that 300. What did I tell you? I had 360.9 last night.
Yeah,
how's that for a monster number?
You crushed it, man. I mean, I did pretty well on DraftKings too. So I had a lot of my lineups. I think I can't even remember now. The lowest score I had was like an obvious play that ended up getting 38 or 40 points. I think it was Ingram. So yeah. I think that was the worst guy I had in my lineups. Everybody else just absolutely crushed. So I was very happy with the results as well.
How mind-boggling it is trying to think about our results from the group of games yesterday while we're watching the group of games get today live that we forecasted, and we just finished forecasting the ones for tomorrow. How the hell are you supposed to keep all that straight for an old guy?
Listen, I'm 28 years old, and it's tough, man. I wake up in the morning not knowing what day it is. I'm sending in shows dated for the next day to get edited, and it's a crazy thing going on over here. I thank everybody over at Hoopball, including Dan Bespris, the man behind the curtain, who kind of keeps us all, functioning. The key cog in this kind of thing next to Bruce. So, and also definitely I want to give a shout out to Panda, Mike Passador over there. He's actually our editor-in-chief over at Hoopball.
I have never talked to Mike. I have heard such great things about him.
Great guy.
I have got to dial him up.
Absolute great guy. Anything you ever have to wonder about the Raptors, he is the go-to guy. Absolute genius. When he knows that's his team, he knows his team inside and out. And I know whenever I have any questions, I text him on the side or I email him on the side. I said, what are you thinking about this pass? Panda, I need some help. Whatever it may be. And,
awesome,
and he's always willing to lend a hand. And he's also made me a better writer over the years. So I just want to give him a shout out. He's another guy that doesn't get as much love and credit because he's on the writing aspect of it behind the scenes. So I wanted to give him his due credit. He definitely deserves it.
Fantastic, man. Well, I look forward to getting to know him as well. Well, beautiful. Looks like we got another show under our belts here, another pod, and hopefully Brandon Clark has enough juice on the bone to get me across the wire for a Chicken Soup Challenge victory. And just a quiet little side shot for Apotria there.
I love it.
And yeah. And then tomorrow I will definitely tweet out when the Coach's Challenge is. It was 2 spots away from selling out this past week, and it was very, very hotly contested. It's always going to be $2, 6 entry max. So you won't get confused going forward, Mike. I don't want any more of these excuses. You've dried up 3 weeks of excuses finishing in the 30s and 40s.
I think I finished higher than you the last 2 weeks.
No, you're smoking some of that stuff again, man. I know it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this week I'll be the one. I'll write this one down this week since I didn't. I'm pretty sure I could just easily go back in the recent history and check those out, but I won't even bother.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to post your lineup and my lineup on Twitter before they tip off, and let's let our loving followers out there follow it blow by blow as I smash you on the Coach's Challenge, man. I'm pumped for this week. I'm starting to do my homework right now.
You need it, man. If you're talking all this game, I'm hoping you bring it. So let's see.
I'm ready. Now I'm mad. I'm ready to go. All right, dude. Let's wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us on another crazy, sort of wacky, wild hoop ball NBA DFS tonight. For my man Mike Apotria and for our buddy Andrew Hansen, I am Coach. We will catch you again tomorrow. I'll be solo tomorrow as we look to crush it again on NBA DFS.
We went off the rails tonight, Coach. So good night, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.